Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Atpadam Darshitam Yena Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedyagravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Yata sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stitani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. So Mark, where are we in the text?
We're on page 128, verse 25, 26.
And Ganesh, will you help us out with chanting tonight?
Yeah, sure. Okay, page 128, 25, 26. Iti me kathitam purvam dishtyaadya samsmritam maya dishtya bodhopi me jatah jata bhogeshu charatihi dishtya Shamasukham swachham vishamyam atishitalam. Thus, what was narrated to me formerly has been remembered by me today by destiny or good fortune. Also, knowledge is born to me by good fortune, and dissatisfaction for enjoyments has arisen. By good fortune, I enter into or come into the possession of the pure joy of tranquility, cool like nectar.
Yes. So we're in the story of Bali, if I remember. And after having been an enjoyer for thousands and thousands of years, he's one of the kings of the demons. Now he starts, this is so important, over and over again. He develops mature vairagya. This then brings his mind inward into self-inquiry. How do we develop mature vairagya? Through a steady observation of the inherent defects of attachment to the world. You've heard me say this many times. Swamiji used to say, go after the world. Huh? Let it drop you again and again. Let it kick you in the teeth. And then he would laugh diabolically. He would say it's the only way to kill the ego. Meaning how tenaciously we hang on to the idea. People, places, things, and conditions are what are going to make me happy. Now, We're not saying there's not enjoyment in the world. It's just so little. And you work so hard for just a little juice, and then it's gone. It's bad economics. It's 95 cents worth of work for a nickel's worth of joy. If we develop mature vairagya, then the mind has the capacity, with proper instruction, to come home. Then we have peace. And here in this verse, we may have had it before in this text, but we certainly get it in this verse, a term called shitala, which means cool. People in ignorance, our minds are burnt with the fever of this, that, and the other. We wear our life lightly like a loose garment. Give up our attachment to the results. Stay in the now. We begin to have a cool mind. It's great peace. Any thoughts on this? I'm reading a book about psychic phenomena, one of the chapters. All sorts of strange things. Reading auras and astral projection, all that stuff. You know, it exists, it's real. But of what use is it if you have no peace? Peace of mind is the Siddhi. And if you have that, it doesn't really mean a whole lot, this other stuff. Any thoughts or questions? Next verse.
Shukrena Upadesha, the instruction by Shukra. Koham tavat ayam kim syat atmetyatma balokinam prichhami bhargavam shukram iti dhyanat tamagatam bhargavam pujayamasa padabhivanandana Padabhivandanadina. Who am I really? What could be the self? Thus shall I ask Shukra, the son of Bhrigu and the seer of the self. From such contemplation, he worshipped Shukra, who had come there by saluting his feet and the like.
So, after we've gotten some sense of mature vairagya, this is again a literary device. He invokes Shukra to ask him, Koham, who am I? What's my essential nature? Where can I find true peace? Let's see what happens. Going on.
Tatah tatra samasinam gurum papracha daityarat guru koham kimete va loka iti vada prabho. Then the king of the demons, Bali, asked the preceptor Shukra, who was sitting there, Teacher, who am I and what are these worlds? Lord, tell me this.
So in this scripture, we actually have 3 questions, but right now Bali is reducing it down to 2. First question, Koham, Who am I? But that's only half the picture. Now, people who get a sense of themselves as witnessing consciousness, but stop there, still have problems with the world. Oh, I don't want to go outside. It's a nasty old world out there. Such bad vibes. I just want to stay home and meditate. That's not freedom. Second question Bali asks is, what are these worlds? Meaning not just sarvam idam, all this, the phenomenal world, but the worlds of the gods and the demons, etc., all those sorts of things. Whatever is manifested on any realm. Let's see what happens, see if we get an answer. Going on.
Shukravacha, Shukra said, Bahuna atra kimuktena saram sanshepatah shrunu chitvam chidaham ete cha loka chiditi sangraha. What is the use of telling much in this matter? Hear the essence briefly. You are pure intelligence or consciousness. I am pure consciousness. These worlds are also pure consciousness. Thus is a summary of truth.
So right here is the summation of the Advaita Vedanta. Now, when I first started this study, I had a doubt. I said, why do we call it non-dual, Advaita? Dvi means two. I thought Ekam Sad Vedanta would be a much better term. Ek is one, Sat truth. Because the fact of my experience is I cognize stuff. It looks like two, but it's not two. So we go through one process first. We cull away all the superimpositions on the pure self. We can call it Nirguna Brahman, Brahman without qualities. I am not the body, I'm the knower of the body. I am not the prana, I'm the knower of the prana. I am not the mind, I'm the knower of the mind. I am not the intellect, I'm the knower of the intellect. I'm not the ego sense. I see the rise and fall of the ego. I'm not even the unmanifest in deep sleep. I am the Chidakasha, the space of pure awareness. Sakshi, the witness. Now, what is this world? Technical term we use is Saguna Brahma, Brahman with qualities. Let's figure this out. If you close your eyes and visualize an elephant, go ahead and do that. What you have here is subject-object, i.e., the subject cognize this mental image, my elephant. Question is, what did you make your elephant out of? Thought? What's thought made out of? In fact, we cannot find a second substance. It is the nature of consciousness to seemingly fork into subject object. Did you turn into an elephant? No. If you visualize a strawberry instead of an elephant, does it take more of you to visualize the elephant than the strawberry? No. You, as the eternal subject, akutusta, you are still immovable, always the same. But what I cognize doesn't ever touch me. We have this asparsha yoga. That's the term we get in Gita. The touch of the untouched. The elephant cannot exist without me cognizing it, yet I never touch it. I don't turn into an elephant. It doesn't take more of me to make an elephant than a strawberry. Now, this gets clearer to understand when we go from the imagination to the dream state. You are the God of your dream. If you dream about an elephant, there's a similarity and a difference. The similarity is the elephant of your dream is imagination. You prove that when you wake up. Poof, it's gone. You don't have to roll up the elephant, put it in the drawer next to your bed. You don't wake up in the morning with an elephant in bed next to you. Thank God. But because of the phenomenon of ignorance called deep sleep, when the mind projects the elephant, I think it is real. By real, I think I'm a dream body, and the dream elephant is separate from me, and it's chasing me. Where I climb on top and ride the elephant, however your dream is. So what the scripture is saying is this is no different. I lied. There's one big difference. The one who's doing the dreaming. Your individual dream is with your own individual mind stuff. This is Ishvara's dream. And we participate in it. So if Shilpa goes into samadhi, I don't disappear. I disappear for her. But I do not cease to exist. This thing is an idea in Ishvara's mind.
Jim?
Yes.
I have a question. Sorry if I'm being a little reductionist, but this point keeps being brought up in this text, and the thought that's in the back of my mind every time it comes up is almost like, so if it's like, does it even matter?
Yes.
Well, because like if the phenomenal world is an illusion or is not real, that's dreamed by somebody else, versus if the phenomenal world actually exists, like from my perspective, like, does it make any difference?
It does, for a couple of reasons. First of all, if your grandmother dies, nobody really dies. And when you see you are that pure consciousness, then existential fear of my own cessation ends. But the other thing is, you and I, as yogis, reenact the creative process of the infinite. Such that God doesn't manifest the world at us and to us, but as us and through us. So in the beginning, we're most concerned about the relationship with our mind. As we get more subtly engaged in this text, we begin to see that actually the content of my thought is quite important. Because you and I are imaging our own part of the universe. The idea, the concept is what we call the total mind, vairagya. The best way I've been able to explain it, way back in the late 50s, before that, in movie theaters, the screens were shaped kind of like the Krishna painting, kind of square, like a postage stamp. Then everything changed when a new technology called Panavision came out, and they were letter envelope shaped, like the TV. And the first movie was How the West Was Won. It's incredible, these vast views. Now, when the old-timey movie was going on, if you looked behind, you would see up there a little window and a movie projector. In those days, there was, the film going like that. I think it's all digital now. Panavision came out, turned around in the theater, and you looked behind you, and there were 3 windows. They were actually projecting 3 films at once. You just couldn't see the scene on the screen. That was the technology. It became obsolete after a while. But the idea was, it looked like one movie, really 3. So in actuality, you're projecting part of the world, and Shilpa is, and Vibha is, and I am, and the dogs, and the frogs, and the worms, and the germs. It's a group effort. The implication here is you have a limited freedom through the changing of your own sankalpa, because you reenact the creative process of the infinite to make changes. So the world may be like a dream, but it doesn't have to be a nightmare. So I'm working with a student right now. She gets tuned up. She's pretty clear about the pure self, but the habituated tendencies of her mind, she keeps going back and rehashing abusive events from their childhood. She's consumed with thoughts like jealousy for her sibling. She has difficulties with her in-laws. She just keeps running these stories. And then she wonders why she has sickness all the time. So what we're working on is, okay, stand back, take a look at the content of your thought life, and start to change those fundamental attitudes. Because this phenomenal world has no real cause in it. It's all the effect of sankalpa. Now, if you're going to work in the world, you're not a sannyasi. So, talk with another person. You're looking for a place to live. So if the content of your mind is, oh, everything's so expensive in the East Bay, and you could never find anything nice, and there's so much noise, and we just can't find anything. And oh, I just hate where I'm living. I hate where I'm living. And guess what God does? Yes, that's your sankalpa. But if on the other hand, someone set out with an intention, God goes before me, preparing the way. I'm in God, so I'm always in my perfect right place. I trust. I'm going to get quiet, wait for the right thought, and act. Then all of a sudden, your experience of the world changes. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
And as yogis, there's nothing wrong with applying it in our daily life. So you are going to do a presentation, if you're a manager, to the higher ups and stuff like that. Oh, I'm so scared. I hope I don't screw it up. And if they're critical, first thing you want to do is learn to renounce all that. It doesn't make a difference. But if your sankalpa is, I'm doing my best, and I'm doing this as seva, I'm doing this as service. And my goal here is that the widget that the company makes is made the best way and serves the most people, and it's a successful project. That becomes your sankalpa. Now, anybody who's successful in the world learns this intuitively. When I was a performing musician, a person could sing or play all the right notes. But if they were in their head, how am I doing? Am I going to do it right? I've got to get everything perfect. It would be two-dimensional, it would be flat. But if, on the other hand, they spent all their time practicing, they were the best they could be, and in performance, go into the zone. Athletes go there, musicians go there. Let something come through. There are tons of ramifications on a personal basis. And the world doesn't freak us out anymore. Does that make it a little clearer?
Mm-hmm.
Now, some yogis, they just stand back and watch the movie. Other yogis, it's given them to make a difference. My personal view is, if you're a householder and you're working in the world, you might as well use these spiritual tools. If you've got a job, you might as well be good at it. And to understand that mind, thought, sankalpa is causative, and the phenomenal world is an effect. Ramana Maharshi used to use this metaphor. Consciousness is like the lamp in a movie projector. Your mind is like the film. Your life is like what shows up on the screen. What movie do you want to run tonight? So they're huge implications. Was that useful?
Yes.
Anybody else have questions about this? And last week, I think it was last week, we talked about if I have habituated negative sankalpa, they're reduced, dissolved through lack of attention to them, and you replace them. Swami Tejamayananda used to say, do you know how to get rid of your worries? Quit worrying. My ignorance says the worrisome life causes me to worry. Yoga says my habit of worrying makes me see life as worrisome. Why? Because the phenomenal world is plastic. It's nothing but vibration held together by thought. And all of us are using this cosmic law, the law of mind and action, most of us unconsciously. A yogi simply starts to take responsibility. Very important point. Now, one has to be careful with this teaching. Where does this differ from these new agey things where people do, affirmations and visualizations so they can get the Cadillac? You've all come in contact with that kind of stuff. You have to understand the underlying sankalpa that people in ignorance run around with. Getting what I want will make me happy. Unfortunately, that contradicts Ishvara's sankalpa. So there's certain things we can't change. You cannot make objects fall any differently than 32 feet per second. That's Ishvara's sankalpa. You can't make light move any faster than 186,000 miles per second. You can't make any physical form endure forever. Even Ishvara doesn't do that. So we have a limited freedom, but a whole lot more than we think we do. That's the so what of this.
Got it. I'm glad you said that last part too, because I was starting to think it sounded a lot like The Secret. You know The Secret? Oh, it's like what you were saying. It's like a new age manifestation thing.
Well, and they all trace their sources back to this text, probably. So I've been rereading after 50 years, Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science. That's where Louise Hay, you can heal your life, all that kind of stuff comes from. Holmes got his major understanding of it from Thomas Troward. Troward was a Brit who was in civil service in Punjab, in India, in the mid-19th century. He was actually born in India. Went to Britain to study and then came back. And he was one of the first to take these ideas. Now, he never caught the deeper teaching, the self-realization part. But he did certainly understand the law of mind and action. That is one of the major themes that 150 years later makes its way into New Agey stuff. But Indians were teaching this 3,000 years ago. When you see yogis with siddhis. They're able to levitate, they can astrally project, they can read minds. All of this has as its root the deep understanding that the phenomenal world is just grossified thought. And quantum physics is coming pretty close to it. Very good question. Very good question. All right, next verse.
Iti nishchayamadaya vilokaya dhiye dhaya swayamevatmanatmanam anantapadamapyasi. Taking hold of such conviction, perceive the self or self-consciousness. Taking hold, sorry, Jim, I didn't finish. Taking hold of such conviction, perceive the self by the self in your own person with a shining intellect. You will attain to the eternal abode.
Yes, so right now, for most of us, because of avidya, ignorance, maya, I think I'm my body. So having been instructed, know you are consciousness. First thing, subject, object discrimination. Drishya viveka, discrimination between the seer and the seen. Now, what is it that knows the self? Am I going to be in meditation all of a sudden? Oh, there's a bright light. That must be the self. No. If you can see it, that isn't it. What is the instrument? What is the pramana by which the self is realized? No. First, how do you know you are you? Do you exist? Yep. How do you know? You do not see, hear, taste, touch, or smell yourself. You don't feel yourself. You don't think yourself. Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. I am the one who knows thinking. I wonder if he ever tried not thinking and see if he disappeared. The self is its own means of knowledge. It is swayambhu, self-evident. How do you know you exist? Oh, I just know it. That's right. Now, everybody already has that. The early 20th century Saint Meher Baba used to say, everybody's already realized. Don't worry, be happy. Speaking from the highest. That's the true knowledge. But when the human intellect goes through the process of becoming very quiet and crystal, we have the reversal of the attentive fact. Auspicious moment of thoughting stars. It becomes very clear to the subtle intellect. Oh, there's nobody there. It's without form, nirupam. It never moves, achalam. Vast and empty like the sky. This is called pratyabhinyana, the aha, the recognition. The mind returning from that moment of pure quiescence is completely transformed. It no longer thinks, oh, I'm the body. It knows aham brahmasmi. So there's two kinds of knowledge we're dealing with here. There's a perfect knowledge. It's real with a big capital R. Self-evidence of the self. And we already have that. Then we have this self-realization that happens in the subtle intellect. When the buddhi, the subtle intellect, becomes buddha. That's why we call the little ivory dude there the Buddha. Buddha, the awakened one. That's what his name means. He's woke. All right, next verse.
Eva muktva gate shukre sarvam chinmatrameva hi iti bhavanaya dhyayan prashanta kalanagana dhyatridhyeya dhyanahino nirmana shantavasana bahu babhuvava tadipabho bali prapta mahapada. When Shukra departed, having said thus, Bali, meditating with the conception that everything is indeed pure consciousness only, with the multitude of comprehending thoughts subdued or calmed, bereft of the triple states of meditator, meditated, and meditation, devoid of the thinking mind, with its mental impressions extinguished, and with a great abode or state of pure being consciousness obtained, was shining like a lamp in a windless place.
Yes. So understanding the shunyata, the voidness or the emptiness of all form. No worries, no need to get upset about it. All the strivings cease. Entering into that, retiring into the self. Still, like the flame of a lamp in the windless room. It's beautiful, beautiful. It's a description of the mind of the yogi moving into nirvikalpa, samadhi. The meditator, meditation, and the object of meditation are one. Any questions about it? Next verse. Before we go, one last thing for Alan on your question. Gita very clearly says, this knowledge makes you master of this world and the beyond. That making it up. So one of the benefits of this work is it makes you an effective person in your worldly life. It improves your health, improves your relationships, makes you effective at work. You contribute something of value to the society. Oh, yeah, it's pretty good.
Do you have that chapter and verse of Gita?
I'll have to look it up for you.
My apologies. Sorry.
Next one.
Nirvikalpa samadhyane chiram sthitva samuttitah rajakaryani sarvani samvyadhat sayatha kramam. Having remained for a long time in deep meditation on the self or being consciousness, without the distinction of the knower, the known, and the knowledge, and having risen therefrom, he performed all the duties of a king in due order or property.
Yes. So again, this nirvikalpa samadhi. Now, let's look at this term. We have a lot of ideas. It's extolled in the scriptures. And we have to be very careful. Because if you make the attainment of nirvikalpa samadhi another goal, that in itself can be problematic. In fact, you can't practice nirvikalpa samadhi. You can only really practice savikalpa samadhi. What's savikalpa samadhi? Absolute equanimity of mind while there's still some perception of the world. Meaning, practically speaking, this tuning up, this intense introversion of the mind. Everything just passed through. Dropping our attachments, dropping our identification. And if you continue that, when the last vasana is let go of, you won't know that it's your last vasana. The mind will come to a stop. For some, it's like Bali. You're in nirvikalpa for maybe several hours. For others of us, it's just a click, a shift. More important than being focused on nirvikalpa, focus on the question, who am I? Do I know my essential nature? Because that's what nirvikalpa is supposed to reveal. Anytime the mind is free from meditation, from thoughting, that's technically nirvikalpa. Any thoughts or questions about this? Now there's a state beyond nirvikalpa, which we call Sahaja samadhi. That's when the woman of knowledge is functioning in the world and she clearly knows Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Oh, this is very permanent. There's no inside, no outside. And then, like Bali, his job was to be king of the demons. So he went off to do his king thing. You and I go to work, we deal with our families, pay my taxes, what we call vyavahara, doing business. Some of us may be kings, others of us just a worker bee. Some of us may be teachers, others of us just sevaks, doing service. One of the marks of the man or woman of wisdom is there's nothing to be gained particularly by striving to do some other job. You'll know. Just follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell used to say. Do what you enjoy. Endeavor to do what you love, and whatever you're doing, endeavor to love what you do. Oh, give up the idea that the answer to all your problems is you don't have the right job. Being aligned with your Swadharma is valuable, but that's not the bailiwick. Oh, it'd be so much better if this may be another object of desire. It's a job. It's important. I do. My peace, my happiness is independent of you. Next verse.
Apadam sampadam chaiva samadrishyaiva pashyati nastameti nabodeti tat prajna sukha dukkhayo. He sees only with equal vision misfortune and good fortune. His understanding or intellect neither rises nor falls in pleasure and pain.
So we have this samadrishta, again riffing on Gita. Woman of wisdom is able to move through life. It's not saying you're going to hit all the green lights of life. But it does say you'll be able to match calamity with serenity. And going back to what we were talking about as a response to Alan's question, if the underlying texture of your mind is happy and peaceful and joyful and enthusiastic, that's a wonderful word. And theus. Theus is the Greek word for God. It means I've got God within me. I'm God inspired. That's what enthusiasm means. You may not be deliberately doing affirmations, but your underlying sankalpa starts to make it work a whole lot easier. Not struggling. Fear drops away. One of the big ones, the fear of financial insecurity. A lot of Indians come into this, even if you're born here, your parents are immigrants. They have come from families that weren't doing too well in India. In those of us white people, it's what we would call the depression mentality. My parents were depression era kids. So they had this, oh, got to make sure we have enough because we don't want to be poor again, you know. And even though you're very successful, there's a fear of financial insecurity. Just making sense? It's just an idea. That's all it is. It's not real. It's not real. The things the yogi begins to experience is, I'm always taken care of. There's absolutely nothing to ever worry about. Doesn't mean you don't take care of business. The Sufis say, trust God, but tether your camel. But trust God. All right, next verse.
Yeshu pradesheshu mano majjati balavat tebhya samudhritya tadhi tattve niyojayet. Whatever places or regions the mind sinks into, like a boy, let one attach it to truth or reality, having lifted it up from such places.
So if my mind sinks into worry, fear, anxiety, control issues, resentment, anger, jealousy, envy, bring it back to the truth. My essential nature is Brahman. This world is really this is abhyasa, this is practice. Jnana abhyasa, practice of knowledge. There's no silver bullet. We do thought by thought, experience by experience. Now in the 6th chapter of Gita, Arjuna will say to Krishna, dude, trying to control the mind is like trying to control the wind. Krishna says, true that, but it can be done with practice. How do we practice? Sakshi Bhava. First thing we do, take on the viewpoint of the witness. I am not my thoughts. I am not my feelings. Then, don't let the mind be at the effect of its indulgent tendencies. Don't be tyrannized by your inner 2-year-old.
I want ice cream. No, I don't want to eat my vegetables.
Unfortunately, most of us still are tyrannized by that indulgent tendency of the mind. Bring the mind back.
How is that something you quiet? Like, how is that something you stop?
See it for what it is. And if your mind says, I want, I see you for what you are. The desire itself is what's making me suffer. It's the craving, it's the controlling, it's the expectation. That's my suffering. Drop it. Om Namah Shivaya. If that's too hard, throw your mind into service. Practice just forgetting this obsessive self-absorption of the ego. Is that making sense?
Mm-hmm.
And people are saying, I'm looking for, if I do this workshop, then that habituated thinking will stop. Or if I take ayahuasca, that habituated thinking will stop. Or if I just go through this therapeutic process, that the habituated thinking will stop. The best you'll get out of all that is understanding. And I love what Werner Erhard, founder of S, used to say, understanding is the movie prize. It doesn't stop it. You stop it by tapas. You know what tapas is? Yes?
Like meditation.
Tapas means austerity, is how it's usually translated.
Okay.
But the literal meaning is heat. The mind is ruled by the law of inertia. The law of inertia is a body at rest or in motion in a vacuum will stay at motion or at rest until energy is applied to change it. So an asteroid's going through outer space, it's just going to keep going on its course. But if something hits it, it changes course. So our sanskaras, I love that word, it's just like a scar in the brain, the convolutions. And they're so habituated, and they're so repetitive, and they're so boring. Did you get upset at anything this week, Biba?
Yes.
What?
Um.
Too personal?
Oh no. Having to do errands.
Okay. Tell me this is the first time you felt this.
No.
Errands may change,
Yeah.
but the feeling, aren't you tired of it?
Yes. But I don't think I've been a witness to it. I've just sort of been in the thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. And it was probably came something like, for years I hated doing dishes. You know why? My mother hated doing dishes. And if we misbehaved as kids, the punishment was to do dishes. Understanding that did no good at all. I had to start, when I do the dish, I do nothing but wash the dish. I had to silence that. I hate doing dishes. You know that voice?
Yeah.
And it's thought by thought. Now, what a yogi starts to do is, rather than avoiding aversive situations, try leaning into it a bit, especially if you got to do it anyway. Look that. My 2-year-old is having a tantrum. My inner 2-year-old. It's okay. We're just gonna run errands today. We're gonna go shopping. We're gonna get the car fixed. It's okay. Lean into it. When you understand what it is, the errands are not causing the mind state. The mind state's just a habit. That's all it is.
I think what you said about being a witness was That's very hard, but very crucial.
That's the first step.
Yeah,
That's the first step. Sakshi Bhava, it's called. Because you can't change anything if you can't see what's going on.
yeah. And I think the trick is to figure out how to be in that position.
You
Right.
remind yourself,
Yeah,
to whom did this feeling occur? To me. Oh, who am I? I am the witness in consciousness. To whom did this thought complex occur? Oh, to me. Oh, wait a minute, I'm the witness in consciousness. I am not that thought complex. Constantly bringing your attention back to it. That's Ramana Maharshi's practice. And don't feed it with a lot of negative emotion. Let it be like when we've been having class here, there's been traffic going up and down Grand Avenue. You know, you can just tune it out. You're aware of it, but you know, so what? There's traffic. So let that little nattery voice, just don't pay much attention to it. And it'll start to diminish. I promise you that. But if nothing changes, nothing changes. Does that make sense?
no,
The law of inertia. If you keep going through the same syndrome, the same complex, and your mind getting annoyed, and you believe it, or you try to get away from the feeling, it will stay with you for lifetimes. Probably already has. Because of the law of inertia. Law of inertia. So when we look at discipline, many of us react to that word. Yeah, I know what, I'm going to be free. And this work gives us liberty, not license. There's a difference. But the word discipline in English comes from the same root as the word disciple. To follow something you love. And the word scissor. So it's like cutting off those things that are not useful. And moving toward what is useful. All right. It's 9 o'clock. We have to quit. Before we do, how many more verses in this chapter, Ganesh?
Just two, one of which is the concluding verse.
Let's do them. And we'll just go a couple minutes over. All right.
Evam abhyasyata abhyasam manomattama tangajam nibadhya sarva bhavena param shreyodhi gamyate. Thus supreme good is obtained by one practicing spiritual discipline, restraining the mind that is like a mad elephant in every manner or with all the heart.
So Arjun calls it the wind here, the mad elephant, but it can be done. Little bit at a time. And the concluding verse?
Iti Sri Vasishta Sangrahe Balupakyanam Nama Dvadasha Sargaha. Thus ends the 12th chapter, titled The Story of Bali, in the abridgment of Yoga Vasishta.
All right. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.